Welcome to Storybreakers, the show where we come up with a brand new film idea off the top of our heads. And if you like it, it's yours. I'm your host, Chris Brennan, and with me today to break story is actor and filmmaker David O'Neill. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm delighted to be here. We go way back. Very proud
Finally.
of my affiliation with Storybreakers, and I think I had the most fun I've ever had as a performer with Storybreakers, and getting to play like lending my voice to these iconic characters, and for a fantastic audience here in Dublin was just it was an amazing experience that you facilitated for us, and I'm very, very proud. I'm very thankful to you for that, but also for our friendship as well, like over the years, because we have collaborated on other things outside of that. So I'm very appreciative to be here. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. And what you're referring to, for some of the audience who may not be aware, we used to run dynamic live readings in front of an audience of unproduced Hollywood blockbusters. So things from Kevin Smith's Superman to Wonder Woman by Joss Whedon, but the Wooden Planet Alien 3 script, like you name it. Like if I found it, we probably performed it. We did 10 shows in total in front of a sold out crowd. We had like 100 people per episode or per event. It was really thrilling and fun. But you in particular got to play some of like the very unique characters.
Oh,
so
the best,
there was
yeah.
Batman.
Yeah.
There was Indiana Jones.
Oh my God.
Who else did you play?
Like just so many great characters, and like the Batman in particular, like was one the first time I did it was on the Kevin Smith Superman Lives, and that was only one scene. And obviously being a huge Batman fan and, so intimidated by the idea, I didn't even want to, do it. But I was like, I would say yes to everything, because I was just so enthusiastic to do it. And obviously I did numerous characters in that. But I remember then, I think it was Justice League was the next time I did it. But I was actually filling in because somebody else was going to do Batman, and we changed the kind of last minute. And
last minute was like the night before, I think.
The night before. And my opinion is, see, I'm a huge Batman fan, so I would be intimidated by the idea of doing it because I just that character is so built up in my head that it involves something that I kind of never considered being able to do myself. But I loved it in the end because what I did was it was kind of a fight or flight kind of situation where it was like, okay, well, you don't have much time to prepare for this, so let's see what happens. And what I did was I'd read so many comics as a kid. I just kind of went, try and be that guy in the comics and just do that. Just let that take over your body. And it almost, the voice came out of the physicality because, with those readings, we were allowed to stand and act out the scenes. And that made a huge difference rather than just sitting in the chair and trying to do a voice. Being physical with the part is what kind of made it kind of happen. And I think I grew in confidence after kind of a couple of those reads with that character anyway, specifically. And I had a time of my life doing them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you were saying earlier you had the opportunity to lend your voice, but it was a live stage show. It was such a wild time. I remember doing the first one, and I had the benefit of having trusting actors while we're actually pioneering something that never really existed. So I was like, we should I want you guys to stand up and perform while the stage direction is being read out.
Yeah.
Because at one point I attended a script reading for a spec script that an actor wrote, and I was looking at it going, it's static. It's like everyone's sitting down. And I was like, oh my gosh, like if you kind of got people standing up and like trying to kind of do impressions or kind of emphasize some of the movements. And then that's when I landed on what if we did this with Kevin Smith's Superman? And it was
absolutely
a blast.
Because well, that's where the fun came in was and particularly for me who when you do drama, and one of the things that people kind of want you to do is you get into these things because you want to be playful and you want to it's really an extension of playing around as a kid, and when you get into drama, people kind of want you to be a variation on yourself. They want you to speak with a Dublin accent. They want you to play some sort of variation on yourself. And so you're constantly being trained to do those things. And those things that you dream about that you wanted to do when you were getting into acting, those ideas start to kind of drift away. So it was amazing to kind of like get in there and play Indiana Jones, Batman, you know, characters like that. And even
Scottish
the episode,
Kal-El, was that right?
yeah,
You were Kal-El and Superman by J.J. Abrams.
Jor-El,
Like
yeah, I played the father. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
Jor-El, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was, and we did that at Comic
I
Con.
think you did like a Scottish accent just to play around, and then everyone else kind
That
of picked
was
up on that.
incredible.
And so all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Kryptonians were Scottish, and
they were all Scottish.
I was sitting back going, I have no idea what's going on. I'm technically directing this thing, but
incredible.
It's so improvisational. Like, I love that nature. The chemistry with you guys, we just hit a magic spot, and you guys could just figure it out. I would sit back and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but like keep doing that.
It was pure chemistry, and it was because you know, you want to do something, you want to give the live audience, because we had an amazing audience. We always had like a lot of people there, but you want to give them something. For me, a great what if, you know. So
Yeah.
I decided to play Jor-El, not like Brando, but like kind of go, well, what if Sean Connery had done it, because he would have been age appropriate, you know. And it was the J.J. Abrams. And no, I'm doing it fun. I'm not thinking that I'm the best Sean Connery impersonator alive or anything, but you're doing it with fun. And because in that script, Krypton doesn't explode for some reason, but Jor-El goes to war with his brother, and Morgan, who is like, you know, just one of the most amazing actors like I was on that stage with, and he played my brother, who we had the civil war with, and I obviously had the first few lines, and he kind of went, well, if he sounds like Sean Connery and I'm playing his brother, I should sound like him too.
Yeah.
So then the other guys in Krypton that were on Krypton all decided, well, if they're both Scottish, I suppose we should, if we're from the same place they're from, we should all be kind of Scottish, and that's how that happens, you know. So it was just one of those very, very fun, and the audience responded to it, you know, massively.
Oh my God, they went ballistic. Yeah, Morgan C. Jones. Oh, I couldn't believe he said yes to this. It was such shenanigans that we were up to, and he just got right in there.
Oh,
he was incredible. Like, and I remember we'll get to the episode in a sec. It's just this was such a funny, an exciting time period as well, because we went on this run of 10 shows, and just I would give you guys like it took a lot of effort to make it look effortless, but I would only give you 2 rehearsals because you'd be up there and you'd have to kind of improv what the mannerisms were going to be based on the stage direction. And I like that energy. I really enjoyed that kind of charged kind of a little confused, a little nervous of like that energy comes across.
Absolutely.
And the audience just ate it up. Like I remember the first time we did it with Kevin Smith Superman. And like I was listening back to the audio because we did it as a stage show. I put it out on the podcast, and I was listening to the audio. My wife walked by and she's like, "What is that?" I was like, "That's the show." And she's like, "It's people laughing like the entire time." I was like, "I know." Like they just went crazy for it. But anyway, so you were on 10 of those, but you've never actually been on the traditional concept of Storybreakers, which is coming up with a film idea. So I thought let's right this wrong and like let's get you on this show.
That's awesome.
And together let's craft a film idea. I have no idea what we're gonna do. So I guess the first question I have is like, do you have like an idea, a nugget, a topic, a genre? Do you have something you kind of want to like bring to the table, or do we just invent the ingredients from scratch?
I just wanted to try something new and not necessarily something that I'm actually working on. I just want to try, because I love the way you just kind of run with something new, and there's, for me, I'm bogged down in kind of projects and writing, you know. So I love kind of like throwing something new out there, and I know that you like running with that as well. So like I love the idea of these kind of these scenarios of like, I was thinking of I like when you take kind of like real world people and put them in a, you know, like a Bubba Hotep, for example.
Okay.
It's like Elvis, but he's in an old folks home, and he swapped places with an Elvis impersonator, and he has to fight a mummy, you know. I've always been fascinated when I see kind of real life people put in fictional circumstances, because you go in there with a preconceived idea of who they are, so you can really play around with those preconceived ideas. And you know, what there was, because maybe at the time of year as well, I was like, I've always wanted to do like a zombie film, and I was like, who would be fun in a zombie film? And I kind of thought, like, I was listening to a podcast with Johnny Knoxville, and I went, I would love to see what the guys from Jackass would get up to in a zombie apocalypse, because I think that would be a hell of a lot of fun, you know?
Okay. Okay. So it's kind of like when you talk about real people in scenarios, is that kind of like the This Is the End? Is that the film with
Very
Jonah
much so,
Hill
yeah.
and those guys?
Yeah, yeah, very, very similar. You know, that's another really good example of it, because
Right.
we all know who these people are. We go in there kind of with the baggage, but what you do is you throw a curveball at them and kind of go like, all right, well, let's kind of deconstruct who they are a little bit. You know, with this, I've been listening to like a podcast with Johnny Knoxville, and I think that's
Yeah.
where I got the idea from, initially. So yeah, I just, what do you think about that idea?
So yeah, I mean it's super fascinating. And it's also like those guys from Jackass, that was a very particular time period that they
Mm,
got famous. They wouldn't have been famous before that, like before
mm.
that kind of brat period of WWE Attitude Era, Howard
Yeah,
Stern,
very
like
much so.
they were at the back end of that where
Yeah.
they were pranksters, they were like genuinely horrible to each other, but in this kind of shared camaraderie way. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't happen afterward either. So they kind of came to prominence in a very particular way, and they're still around. So I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
and they're reinventing themselves. I know they had a new film that came out a couple of years ago, and that even that one, it felt different.
yeah,
There wasn't that feeling of bullying that they had in the previous ones, where
yeah.
there
Well,
was
they're getting older,
particular
you know?
there was particular characters like real people like Bam
Mm,
Margera would actually like be treat other people like pretty poorly. And even like now in subsequent years and podcasts, you actually hear their stories about that. And
mm.
like even though it was played for laughs, there was like a lot of emotional baggage that was being built in the name of fun, and not everybody was enjoying it. So there's something there with that troupe of performers
Mm.
and what they performed that I'm immediately curious about if you put them in an end of the world apocalyptic scenario.
Well, I think the way I look at it is, it's like, if you have literally The Walking Dead versus the most extreme living, you know,
Oh,
that kind of
nice.
idea. It's like, you know, these guys are like, they're living, they're pushing the limits of what living is. They are adrenaline junkies, you know, and
Right.
they did really, it wasn't just, you know, it initially came from a necessity. Johnny Knoxville wanted to be an actor, and he started performing stunts for attention. But you know, he genuinely does love the thrill of it. You know, now he has changed quite a bit, and it's really, really interesting. And I do think that, like, his, you know, evolution could make for an interesting screen character as well, because he has kids now, and he said he got really hurt on the last film, and it really changed his perspective. It's like, but he does love going back to those films. He loves whatever it is, the brotherhood of being around those guys, and
Yeah.
the mischief that they got up to. But he does worry about things like his kids now, and he, you know, he has gotten older. So I think they did bring in new cast on the last one, and you know, you were talking about, like, even what you're saying about the guys, you know, being slightly bullyish when they were younger. Again, you have elements there that could lead to conflict within the group, which can play out interestingly in a fictional scenario on screen. Like, I mean, what you want are people who have different outlooks in life interacting with each other in the midst of this while doing these things. And so I think it could be an interesting avenue to explore, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of ways you can go about it.
Mm,
I have a opinion of how we should do it, but there
okay.
could be you could do this as if a writer wanted to take this idea, they
Mm,
could actually create a list of fictional characters that are just jackass. Like, and
yeah.
you could even start the film with like an old episode from 2002, like, and
Mm,
then you cut to them in 2024, and like so the audience go, oh, okay, these are the characters. Or you could do it with the actual Jackass cast and they come
mm,
back and they act. And I think that we're probably in our conversation today going to actually frame it as the Jackass cast, right?
That would be
Like,
fun. I think that'd be fun. Yeah.
Just because like what happens usually is we end up doing like fictional casting to kind of give the frame of reference to the audience. But if we just focus on Jackass, that's done for us. And also it's all like we're just talking. So like it's like I would love to just actually see where this goes because there is already a history with them. So let's actually do it as if Jackass were the real life people who have that history, and we're talking about like them at this age, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I know it's fantasy booking, but I mean, I think we have to kind of take into an idea of like, what is here and now and where we are now and what we could try and do with it now, you know?
Because I think, and we kind of circled this point a couple times already, like if they've had that emotional baggage from another era where they became famous, and you have them reunite now, maybe they're doing like the new film, and
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And there's a little friction there from like how people treated each other, and like, oh, you said this on a podcast. So they did together, they found the most success. Like they never would have been successful except for this shared show, but it probably led to a lot of issues going forward. And then you bring them all back, and then you're getting into a scenario where you unleash the zombie apocalypse, where I imagine if you were in that scenario, you'd have to collaborate better than any other time in order to survive. Now you have the weight of their shared history of basically screwing each other over, and all of a sudden you're bringing that in, going like they're just like, they see each other and they're used to like, oh, this would be funny if I make this person if I make this person's life difficult, or I make his life painful for our enjoyment. That's kind of how they see each other. They're coming in at a later date, a bit older, a bit wiser. Some are changed, some haven't changed. Some are actually like missing and reminiscing about those times. And then you put them into this extreme environment, the most extreme environment that an extreme adrenaline junkie could enjoy.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Like that's very much along the lines of what I was thinking, because you know, it's fascinating because it's already kind of built into the DNA of their relationships, and really because there was tensions amongst them as they all kind of branched off and kind of did their solo stuff away from the group. So they have come back together despite having these kind of like, you know, tension. Like I listened to like a podcast and Steve O said he was a bit upset when Johnny Knoxville did the where he plays the old guy. What is it? The bad grandpa? Is it? No, not bad grandpa. That's the De Niro film. But you know the one where he plays the old guy. And he does like
the dirty grandpa guy. I don't know. I've never seen it, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. And then Steve O went with I think Chris Pontius, and they did a show, and it was like the stuff they weren't allowed to do on Jackass because Johnny Knoxville wouldn't let them. But they're all come back and they're friends, but I don't think Bam Margera didn't come back for the last one. I think he's actually fallen out with them. So they have had real tension. And I would imagine this scenario where they actually get the band back together, they start doing something, it's not working, and then this apocalypse happens, this zombie outbreak, and then it starts to click with them again, and they realize, you know, actually we rely on each other, we're good together, and we're surviving together is how I see, you know, the hook for the audience and the enjoyment for us is kind of seeing them working together. And then maybe, you know, it probably goes too far, and then it's like, when this does become survival versus when does this become, you know, and it really goes back to the original show. It's like about when is our entertainment more important than, you know, the cruelty of like what we're actually kind of losing the run of ourselves, like, you know, having fun with these zombies. I always think of, it's almost like, you know, the scene in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, where there's the moment in the film when everything's kind of settled down, and then they're like, they start having fun. They're just like, they have the sniper and they're like, tell him to shoot Burt Reynolds because there's a guy with a mustache. And I'm like,
love that scene.
Because that's something that I think people would feel boredom with. If they were okay in a zombie apocalypse, they would start then trying to entertain themselves. And I watched The Walking Dead for a few seasons, And I had to, the reason I actually stopped watching that show was because I didn't see any reason for why these people are even trying to survive. There was just nothing. They were just kind of miserable all the time. There was no levity. There's no funny character in it. Wasn't even like a, you know, when I watched Lost, there was like a Hurley character who was funny, and you know, he was stranded on an island, but he still remembered what living was. You know, he
Mhm.
still remembered fondly what living was. And there's a great scene actually in not Lost, but have you seen Reign of Fire with Christian Bale, Matthew
Yeah,
McConaughey?
in the cinema when it came out in
Yeah.
2002, I think, was
Sure,
it?
yeah, yeah. I haven't watched
Yeah.
it in a while, but if memory serves me correct, there's a scene at the start, and it's after the zombies have taken over the earth and humans are in hiding. But there's a great scene where Christian Bale and his friend, I think, is played by Jared Butler. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I could be wrong.
Right.
But they're entertaining children, right, by putting on a stage performance for them. But they're reenacting Empire Strikes Back, and they're doing the, you know, I am your father scene, and these kids are like getting blown away by them reenacting. I went, that's what I want to see in a, you know, human beings reminding themselves why it's important to live in an apocalypse, in a zombie apocalypse.
Right.
And I think that that's something that's worth exploring in this. You know, these guys they want to have fun, they want to live life to the extreme, you know.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. And there's a lot of like we're kind of getting figuring out the character arcs already
Yeah.
of these people who some of them will probably have a bit of animosity to like what happened in their life, and they kind of look back at the conflicts between each other, but they're actually going to have to learn how to collaborate, and maybe along the way they'll realize that the only way they succeeded anyway in general, like I mean kind of career success, was
Mm,
because they were together, and they're going to have this survival experience where they have to like learn that it's them together
yeah.
that is when they succeed the most, because since they broke up, since they haven't been like doing the show, it's very minimal in terms of success that individuals have had. But you could also play in the fact that I think from the very beginning, Johnny Knoxville was like the protagonist of them, and nobody really set out for that to happen. It just was, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had that kind of classic leading man good looks,
Yeah.
but they never really said it or positioned it to be that way. It just the audience kind of took it on that they're like, he's the leader of them. And I'm sure there's been resistance to that internally with the group of like, why does he get all the movie roles? Why did he get all the opportunities? Why is it Johnny Knoxville
Yeah.
and the Jackass crew? Why couldn't it have been Bam Margera and
Yeah.
the Jackass crew?
Yeah.
Why not that? So yeah, no, all this makes total sense. Before we get into walking like to the rest of it, and I'm not sure if this will help, but I did watch The Walking Dead for a few seasons as well,
Mm,
and I stopped watching it, but there was one particular aspect of it that I felt was lacking, and maybe this will influence our decisions that
mm,
we're gonna get into once we kick this topic off. But I remember there's a scene in it, and spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen the first 4 seasons of Walking Dead,
yeah.
where I think it's Rick Grimes is the main character's name, and they have a baby, and then I think the mother dies,
Yeah.
and then now they have to take care of a baby, and the episodes would like be too big in my opinion sometimes, where I'm like, you're talking about too big of scenarios, whereas I was actually so curious as how you have a baby in an apocalypse. Like
Mm,
you could go to it's like, how do you feed the baby? The mother's
yeah.
gone. So how do you feed the baby?
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to get formula. So you go to a shop, and then you go to a shop with a baby who you cannot stop crying, but there's zombies outside. And I'm
Mm,
like, they just skipped all of that. And they just
yeah.
they went like, oh, somebody's holding the baby. And I'm like, you kind of, I want that level of like
Yeah.
reality, and like, instead of like the neighborhood, like I think they went to this new neighborhood. It was a walled up center, and there was some mistrust there. And I'm like, no, I just want that simplified version of like,
yeah,
how do you have a baby without a mother in the apocalypse when this baby is a siren that attracts the things that will kill it, and you have to keep the baby safe? I'm like,
yeah,
I would have preferred, in just my opinion of how I view these things, like I would have just loved like centering it down to that level. Like, let's get into more like easier terms of survival and going, what would that be like? Because I think it's actually more relatable to everybody to just go, oh my God, like, how do you do it? And I guess the writers, the showrunner, they just went, we're not really concerned with that. I
yeah.
was like, but that is humanity.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
taking care of raising a baby in this hellhole, or even going, why are we raising this baby? Like,
Yeah.
have those questions of like, what kind of future are we actually building towards? And I'm not sure how much that we're going to put into this, but just when you talked about The Walking Dead,
Yeah.
that was a thought I had as I stopped watching it. I was like, oh, I kind of missed those
Missed
little things.
opportunities, really. And I mean,
Almost,
you saw that. I saw missed opportunities in the show as well. That would have kept me watching, because there was so many good aspects of it. I was like, I was hooked. I was interested. But when you see missed opportunities, you kind of go, oh, okay, well, well, if you're a screenwriter, you start writing them down, I suppose. But yeah, I felt that about the show. There was kind of missed opportunities, just like that,
yeah. All right. So I think we get into this. How we do this, you're probably aware. Like, we hop around, so it doesn't. We try as much as possible to be linear, but
Yeah.
we're also inventing this from scratch. So I think
Yeah.
we've already discussed kind of the viable arcs, the beginning, and kind of
Sure.
the framework. But let's go to the top. And I think the best way you kind of kick this off is an old like clip from the first seasons of Jackass to kind of introduce
Yeah.
the concept.
Yeah.
Like, I can even imagine that song, like dong dong
Yeah.
dong, actually kicks the
Yeah.
entire film off. And then some like elaborate stunt, like a real one when they were younger,
Yeah.
and that's how you kick it off. And then you probably match cut to them now.
Yeah.
Like, you
Oh
just
yeah.
go
Some
straight to now, and yeah.
like
Go ahead.
yeah, I know exactly what we're talking about. Like, something that really sums up who they were at the time. Like, just gets them the gross out humor, the elaborate stunts, and just tells you exactly who they were. And then, as you said, cut to them now, and it's a different image. It's them trying to get back to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know how best you want to do this. Would it be a clip where somebody is like bullying another person, and then you cut to the other person and they're not really enjoying it? Or is it like one of those dramatic, like, roll down the ramp and like land in the water, kind of absurd kind of visual stunts? And I just think the juxtaposition will probably we want like a clash of emotions, like, and that kind of charged high energy probably needs to be matched with kind of a sadness of their current state. And then we introduce the idea of, oh, they're going to do a reunion one.
Yeah.
But hopefully that intro is kind of gave us a starting point of like a bit of the animosity that you can kind of bring into the story like right away and cleanly. Something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think you have to show, as you said, like, just completely make a contrast, and just kind of show like these guys were young, they were full of energy, they were, it was vibrant, and they were, a lot of them were having a lot of fun, and then just kind of cut to, all right, it's business, and we're getting the band back together, and we don't quite know why we're doing it. We know we probably have bills to pay on top of, also there's something missing within them, that they want to try. And I think that's why it could push into, it's not happening for them, but then, the catalyst kind of happens of where the apocalypse happens and kind of turns everything on its head, and it becomes a fight or flight thing for them, and they have to collaborate together.
Yeah. So who do we want to kind of feature? Like, we probably need out of the group, funny enough, talking about like Knoxville was the protagonist.
Yeah.
We do want to kind of frame this somewhere. Like, even if you look at This Is the End, I think it was I forget his last name, I forget his last name.
Yeah.
He was like one of the least famous members of the group. He was actually what I would consider the protagonist of that story.
Sure,
Because
yeah.
like Jonah Hill was a bit of a douche in that, and like Franco was difficult. Like, but there was this one kind of Jay was the one who was quite level-headed, and the audience could see it through his eyes. So I think we need to frame it that way. Who's the person? And I would think it might be somebody who would have felt bullied in this, like would have been the person who didn't come out of this the best way.
That's really interesting, because I would have just went straight for Knoxville, but that's probably because I listened to a podcast with him, and I was surprised by how much he'd kind of changed and evolved. So that's why I went to him straight away. But I think it's interesting what you're saying, is that it could be somebody else, you know?
Because then you're looking at, then you have somebody who's like, God, but Knoxville had everything after this, you know? Like, if you see it from Knoxville's point of view, he actually has had quite a bit of success. I mean, we're making this up, so we can go either way. But if you did have, I don't know, maybe Steve-O, to be honest, like, he has a bit of success, but he actually has had a bit of animosity to Knoxville. I think even in the last film, I think there was issues with contracts, pay. He was a breakout character, but never really got the acclaim. He also had alcohol or substance issues, and he's sober now. So like, he's through a dynamic change, and that could be somebody interesting to focus on.
He did the most extreme things as well, the most gross out. He put his body on the line, I think, quite a bit as well. Like, he was the one that pushed it the most, you know. Knoxville was up there, but I think Steve-O, I think everybody agrees that he put his body to the limit the most.
Yeah. So I can imagine you have a character like this, and you cut from the past where they were like the height of their popularity and power, and not power, but the height of their popularity and stardom. And then you cut to them now, and you know, he has a van where he does his podcast from. He sells like hot sauce, you know, like he does live shows. So he's hustling, but it looks like it's a lot of effort is going into this, you know. And it, like, whereas once it was like simple, like the fame came to them. They did the show, then they're going to the MTV movie awards and music awards, like all this. So we should meet him now. And
well, he has a podcast now.
Yeah. So I think what I'm thinking is that you kind of want to have the clash of like scenarios, and it's a negative now. And we can it's fictionalized. Like, we're making this up. So I actually think he's in a great space and he's doing well, but we're creating a fictionalized version of them, just like this is now, or this is the end. So like, I'm just imagining that it's a negative scenario. Maybe he put on a show and nobody showed up, something like that, you know, like, God, like, go from the height of popularity to like, they're going, do you want to go on the stage anyway? There's only 3 people in the audience. And it's like, I guess I have to get on the stage if there's 3 people, because 3 people paid. And it's like, but like, you're gonna hurt yourself for 3 people. And it's like, I used to hurt myself for 3 million people. Now I hurt myself for 3 people. You know? And that, I just kind of think this person, and maybe it's Steve-O, I don't know, but it's not really as important as just kind of figuring out the tone of the scene. I think you kind of want him to go, I'm done. Like, I'm actually finished with this. Like, this is not worth it. That's it. And then he probably gets a message going, Johnny Knoxville wants to talk to you. And they're going to introduce, we're going to do another film. So in the intro, you went from the height to the collapse to the I'm quitting. That's it. I'm never doing this again. Okay. Jackass 5, is it? I think 5 is the next one. So it's like,
let's just make it exaggerated, make it like 8 or 9.
Yeah. And I think that there's so much in that you have as an intro. Then like, you've gotten this character who's like, I'm done. Like, this was a terrible idea. Like, life didn't go the way it should have, that kind of thing. And then like, let's bring it back. So you carried in that baggage into the big reunion film where everyone comes back together. And yeah, that's basically your introduction. Like, what do you think of that idea?
Oh, that's a great idea. Like that's a fantastic intro. I hadn't thought about that at all, but it makes so much sense. I love this idea of, it's just not working out for him, even though as he's like, he has a great podcast. It's really, really good. But there's something
I
interesting.
think we're talking fictional versions because I don't want to insult
Yeah.
them. They are like Steve in particular he's doing well. Like even his YouTube channel, I watch his interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we can't really do this if we have to cater for like their reality. This feels like the Bubba Hotep. Like we're making up fictionalized versions of them.
Yeah, I agree.
We have to make them feel like losers in order to like get them to feel like heroes in the apocalypse, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're playing with the dynamics of what we think. It's go back to wrestling. It's kayfabing it. We're playing with ideas of them in our heads rather than kind of like who they are in real life. And I think that's more fun, like as well. To mess around with those narratives.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense.
Just in case the listeners are like, that's not how it goes. Like, he's great. Like we know, like we're inventing the fictionalized scenarios for them.
Yeah.
So then I know we want to get to the apocalypse by like the first act, like, so we're probably going to get them to show up on the set or like maybe an initial meeting. Actually, an initial meeting where they agree to do it. But in that meeting, you can see some of the old dynamics, and maybe we have the characters go, it's going to be different this time. Like, I'm not going to be bullied like it was. There's nobody's dropping snakes on me because I'm petrified of snakes. Like, they're going like, it's different. I've got kids. Like, you actually see like how like, oh wait, is this even worth doing if everybody has terms and conditions for how to perform and behave? And I think that would be really funny to kind of have that initial meeting. And you kind of set the table of what the dynamics of these individual relationships are in like modern context when they're older. Like no poo gags. What? You're the poo guy. Like, no, I'm not doing any more poo gags. And it's like,
there was the poo guy
2 times for dysentery. It was a Dave England, right?
Yeah, he was the poo guy.
The poo guy.
He's obsessed with
no poo gags. You got to be the poo gags. It's like, well, there's no poo at all. We can't get any poo at all. Like, what else is off the table? And everybody's like taking things off the table. Like, what are we left with? The bulls.
Yeah.
I don't know if my doctor said I can't have bulls anymore. And it's like, no bulls? What's the point?
Yeah. Well, that's all
fun.
Great stuff. That's amazing stuff because everything you're talking about there, then that lends itself to when it flips, that could all come back. Like, the poo guy who doesn't do the poo, like, that could be. It could come back later on in the film, and it's like they need the poo guy all of a sudden. maybe his fresh poo draws zombie scent, or something. They pick it up and they start chasing it,
Oh my gosh, because this is how we jump around, which I kind of warned earlier. So I've seen this in other things where people have masked their scent from zombies.
Yeah.
I think, but they kind of wear dirty clothes or they cover themselves in like zombie blood. I think they're going to be like, we need to cover ourselves in shit or poop to mask the scent. And the poo guy's like, dude, I had one rule. And it was like, you got to do it. Like, you have to cover yourself in poo to go rescue this other guy. And so the poo guy has to do the one thing he put in his contract that he couldn't do. He's like, I'm not doing it. And of course, and that could be a running gag we have throughout. Is like, whatever they said that they're not going to do again, we're going to make them do
it again
in the zombie apocalypse.
I think that's brilliant.
There's no camera here. There's no camera. This is not for anybody. It's to save each other and hopefully save the people that they don't like. So it's like, I got to save Bam Margera, but cover myself in poo. I don't like him and I don't like this. Well, you got to do it because we're together. We're a troupe. We're a troupe. I wouldn't do the family thing that's so overdone, but we're a traveling troupe. Like, we're circus performers and we have to have each other's back. That's what it is. That's what you do when you're a troupe. And so they kind of like reestablish that. But that I love that. That's brilliant. Super fun.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah.
I think then you want to get them on the set though, right? Like, we're not messing around here. Like, let's,
Yeah,
because we're
yeah,
gonna
I
want to
think
get them
so.
on the set because we still need the apocalypse to happen while they're in production, right? 'Cause, like,
That's what I was thinking.
the
Yeah.
reason they're together is to film a new one. And let me know what you think about like how the apocalypse occurs. Did you have any thoughts about like how that would happen? Because we're going from like nothing to something very fast.
Sure,
And
yeah.
the more energy we have with it, or even like a funny scenario, maybe like running with the bulls, but there's like zombies there, and like it turns into a version of one of their elaborate pranks, but
Okay.
there's a zombie involved.
Yeah, yeah.
There's got to be something where there's confusion as to what this is, and people
Okay.
aren't sure if this is real or not. Or maybe
Yeah.
one of the guys actually gets bit immediately. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like we have to take the premise, right, of what a Jackass segment is and apply it to the apocalypse. That has to be kind
Yeah.
of a transition into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Well, what do you think about?
I don't know. Like, I mean, the setups for the zombie apocalypse, like, they're always they're so varied, you know. And every time I try and think of an original one, I'm like, I literally just watched them 28 Days Later earlier, and I forgot that it was like it came from monkeys, and I was like, oh, they had monkey
Right.
zombies already, you know. And I was like, that's a great idea, you know, the animal zombies, that kind of thing is funny, it's interesting, but it was done in a very serious film. And I think I think the viral thing is kind of the way people go a lot of the time. But it's interesting because if I think back to the first zombie film I ever saw was the original Dawn of the Dead.
Hmm.
That was the first that I saw, and the viral thing became interesting to me because I kind of literally just went by. Remember the newscast that the guy says, he's like, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Iconic.
And
Absolutely.
for me as a kid, I kind of went, I didn't think it was about it was spread like a disease or the bites. I literally thought that, oh well, now when you die, you come back alive just because there's no more room in
Hmm.
hell. That's what I initially thought about the zombie kind of outbreak. But it's morphed and it's changed kind of with the trends. So something to go back to the that ties into the Jackass crew and what could be happening with them.
Well, I don't think we need to explain the
Mm,
reason behind it. I actually love your idea of like going back to the original, like the dead rise. That's it.
yeah,
Like,
that's it.
from
Yeah, yeah.
George Romero's original, like Night of the Living Dead, the dead rise, and like there's like I think news reports that they hear, but there's no definitive answer. We don't
There's
need that.
mystery. There's
Yeah,
mystery in it. Yeah,
like for me as a fan of horror films, I love when the mystery is real. Like
yeah.
there's like The Shining doesn't explain anything, and it's one of the most
Mm,
effective, shocking, and unsettling experiences I've ever had. And I was
mm,
young when I watched it. But once you say like, oh no, it is a ghost, and this is why he's a ghost, you actually the definition loses the fear because immediately
yeah,
you're defining it. So
yeah,
I'm happy to not have a definition. I'm just thinking like rather than like how the outbreak occurred, it's like how do we introduce that to our Jackass crew?
yeah.
And it could be something like they were off in an isolated remote area filming a few segments, and now they're coming back to like a more populated environment. And in the meantime, the outbreak happened, but they've been off the grid for the entire experience.
Filming. Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe they encounter a zombie, but they don't know it is. They actually think it's one of them pulling a prank on
yeah,
each other, you know? And I don't know, like right now I'm getting this image of like they have this brutal scenario with a zombie. Maybe one of them is bitten because you kind of want to get that dynamic in.
yeah, yeah.
And we have to be okay with like killing them off, but also
Sure.
this is
Yeah,
them
yeah.
performing in this meta environment, so they're all in on the gag of they're acting like themselves in this. Um, I just have this kind of vision of like they really struggle with one, right? And like it's a surprise. So they're like, oh no, this is Knoxville up to his old tricks again. And it bites me. Hey man, like that really hurt. And like they really struggle. They knock him down. They can't defeat him. Maybe they do accidentally kill the zombie. Like like stab them in the head, and it's a struggle, right?
Yeah.
I just imagine they're like, if you take that difficulty they had with one, and then they like look over a wall, and there's just
Yeah.
there is just a horde coming towards them.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something like cinematic or kind of frenetic about this experience. And if you have people filming it too, so we're actually filming that first encounter like they film a Jackass segment, the kind of documentary fly on the wall.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the guy with the camera is like, I don't know what's going on. They don't tell me anything. Like, they surprise me. So we actually showcase the first attack like it's a segment from Jackass, and one of the guys gets bitten.
I love that idea. That's something that I definitely wanted to explore as well, is that to kind of cut between the two and have segments that are shot like Jackass, in the zombie outbreak as well, and actually have fun with that and kind of go between the two when this all happens. I think that would be so entertaining, I think, to watch, because it had
No, sorry, go ahead. Please continue.
No, because it has a very identifiable look and feel to it. It's unique. It is, you know what it is when you see it. So I think you have to include that.
Because then also you could have whole conversations like after that attack where they're trying to come to grips with what this actually is. And maybe somebody is like, keep filming. I was like, what do you mean keep filming? Like, the camera team are like, what do you mean? It's like, we'll keep, like, I don't know, this might be isolated just to hear, but this could be really good for the film. There is no film. Like, this is about survival. And it's like, and there actually is a whole other level of like, should we document our own survival? Because when this all clears up, we would have this would be great for the next film. Versus the people who are like, no, this is just about survival. We don't need to document it. Document it for who? If the world is falling apart, and you have that kind of argument within the group. I do think it should be like they agree the camera team should be rolling, because at some point the cameraman is going to become a victim, right? Like, so then where normally the camera team are off limits. I know in some of the films, like, they pull the odd prank on a cameraman, or they de-pants him, or there's some kind of juvenile activity. I think in this scenario, you can play with that, but then in that scene within the scene, so like we're experiencing another encounter, but through the lens of the Jackass world, and then the zombie turns on the camera, and immediately, for a brief moment, turns into a found footage film where the cameraman is running and he's now like part of it, and he didn't mean to be. That would be so incredible. Like, that would be
that's a really great transition. Yeah.
A meta point, because what we know of Jackass is the camera is us. It's invisible. Like, we don't notice this. Like, sometimes there are moments that are like, and you catch some of them when it's people sitting in the back, or sitting like at a bench, like waiting for a performance, and somebody like drops a flower on someone's head or something. There's like, you kind of catch that moment where the cameraman is catching up to it. But really, for the most of it, it's like fly on the wall documentation. So by doing this, we're really getting to play with the concept of zombies and Jackass by actually melding the two together and turn it into not the whole thing. It wouldn't work this way. You can't do the whole thing.
No, I don't think so.
Footage, but have a scene, have a moment, maybe early on, like, not like maybe before the midpoint, where it turns into like this one memorable moment where a Jackass scene just fails because the cameraman is eaten.
Yeah. Well, it could be actually an interesting moment. It could work exactly how you're saying it, but there could be an amazing moment if you have your outbreak, and like, I mean, you have what you said, like a horde, and you make these vicious, very threatening, very, very intense zombies, and you put them all through the ringer, and just, you give them just a moment where they just get out alive, but they get safe, right? And then black, and then boom, welcome to Jackass, and it's Jackass post-apocalypse, and they're like, we're in control of this shit, and we're gonna have fucking fun, It's just that. and it's like you would almost get the pop from the audience if you hold off on it until the tension is built, cut to black, then it's like cuts into the welcome to Jackass, and it's like, okay, this is Jackass and the zombie apocalypse, and then you go into the really fun Jackass bits and segments and have a lot of fun with those.
Yeah, I even have another idea, and I think a lot of this is going to turn into segments because
yeah,
I mean, what are we doing if we're not building into specific, unique segments of colliding these things that have no reason or justification together? So they're pranksters and they like to play tricks on each other, right? So this would probably be a bit deeper, and maybe I don't know. It's difficult to kind of line up what happens next and next, and I'm sure what we're doing isn't going to land as a cohesive beginning to end narrative.
Yeah.
But my thinking is at one point, one of them is going to dress up as a zombie and bring the cameraman in and be like, hey, I'm going to fool Wee Man into thinking that I've turned into a zombie.
Yeah.
So he gets all the makeup done. We're filming it. And then he sneaks up on Wee Man, who's asleep at night, and then pretends to be a zombie and then gets shot in the face by Wee Man and killed because Wee Man's like, I thought he was a zombie.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, new guidelines. We're not pretending to be zombies. And it's like,
yeah.
Danger Aaron is just dead from a headshot because Wee Man protected himself from a zombie. And it's like, it was a mistake. It was a mistake. Like what? Like, and we filmed that in Jackass segmentation, like in the way they do it. But like, oh, wow, this is going to be so funny. And maybe have people go, are you sure? Like, I don't know. Like, it might be too far. And it's like, if we're making a zombie Jackass, like we have to prank each other, and then one of them gets killed by the other, and it's like there wasn't even a zombie involved. And I think that's even where we can kind of build towards this arc we've been talking about of how conflict was their success between each other needs to turn into collaboration. And I think that could be part of the transition building blocks of going, look, we can't survive if we're constantly taking our stress and our energy out on each other. We have to like work together. But that could be such a memorable moment.
No, I like I think that's key, is that like once this outbreak happens, that they do have to kind of come together and overcome, and then it's all cooking and it's all good. There's mishaps, like, we need obviously a huge amount of comedy in this. But I think I have an idea for kind of the midpoint that I want to throw at you and just see what you think. But it's a question that I've had for when I'm like just fantasizing about like the zombie apocalypse and just me being a coward in this scenario. It's like, you know what, I would just lay low and just wait for them all to decompose to the point that they can't walk anymore.
Right.
And now, the reason I think that it might fit this scenario is because if the guys start getting a high, performing again and doing all these things, what happens when you take it away then? When you take away their toys? What if the zombies all die off?
Okay.
And then they're left with this, oh, we were having fun. And you just take away their toy, the zombie apocalypse. It's like, now it could be specified, like it could be located to their area of like, we've run out of zombies. We can't do this anymore. We need to find more zombies. This is like a drug now. Like, we need to find more zombies to do our thing because this is good. We were working again. So they have this existential crisis almost of like, we can't be Jackass anymore without this thing,
That's super interesting. So we could play with it in kind of how I'm kind of figuring this out. We can play with the difficulties that they've had early on, like the initial attack, the cameraman gets attacked, one of them gets killed by the other, but then they get into the space of like, we're only going to succeed if we work together. So they start working together well. And then they start getting a confidence to them, because even as you're saying that, I never really thought about how they started using the zombies as their adrenaline challenge. because I
Yeah.
just have this very stark image of like going over a pit of zombies. Like they've herded zombies into a pit, and now they actually have to like rope walk. Oh yeah, like Steve-O like rope walks over a herd of zombies. Yeah.
He did
And
that.
it's like,
yeah, so the zombies thing, yeah, they've
and
been
now
doing all that sort of
and
stuff.
now they just they reverted back to their base level primal instinct,
Yeah.
and they start finding success. And there could be a thing. I mean, it's going against one of our arcs that we talked about, but whatever. We're literally making this up. But it gets to a point where they probably become super effective in eliminating zombies by playing with them and documenting like really great Jackass footage. Like, this is going to be the best film ever. It's like nobody's ever going to see it, you know? And to the point where they go, well, there's no zombies. And you probably want to have that internal conflict of this topic too. So you have people going, it's a good thing and let's stay here. And then you have the others who are like, no, let's go find more because the film isn't done. And also, how do you know when a Jackass film is done? Like, how many pranks do you need to do? How many adrenaline scenarios are filmed to make the final cut? And how many are left on the cutting room floor?
Yeah.
And now that I think about that, I wonder how many like scenarios where maybe even a Dave England turns around and goes, he watches the final film and like one of his poo scenes isn't in it. And he's like, hey, like, you didn't tell me you cut that. That was my favorite thing I've ever done. Like, you have these dynamics, I'm sure happens because they're very high energy personalities, and they don't all get to have the last call. So I bet there's lots of scenarios where somebody goes, I cannot believe you cut that segment out. Like, that was my favorite segment. So we could go that direction. I think there is something super interesting about they actually eliminate the zombies in their area, and that's a good thing. In any zombie film, that's the best case scenario. But this is not a normal zombie film. This is, they're going to go out and seek more adrenaline, and they're going to invite the conflict in.
Yeah.
And I think if you have conflict in the team, in the troop of people who don't like this idea and people who do, I think you can get away with it. But I really like that idea. So we're going to say we've now gotten to the midpoint. And they, with all the fun they've had, and we probably have a great montage of different scenarios. Like, hey, my name is Chris Pontius, and here's Party Boy Zombie Edition, and he's like dancing in his Speedo around zombies and like just trying to survive. Johnny Knoxville is with a zombie bull, or like, I don't know. It's Johnny Knoxville, a bull, and like a crowd of zombies also attacking him. And like, you just have, again, if we're going to do this, just do it. And there's a ton of these different scenarios. Yeah, that's fantastic. So what that gets us to the midpoint. So now, are we saying at this point, we've had our fun, we've gotten a lot of memorable segments, and then they turn around and go, there's no more zombies. What?
There's no more zombies. You know, they've decayed. They're not moving. And you can show an evolution of that. You can have them being really fast and vicious, and then they're slowly getting weaker. But it'll also play into the audience's perception of like going from, okay, we're killing these because they're an initial threat, but like if you go down to the slower zombies, and they're just having a lot of fun doing their Jackass antics for their stunts, for their film, for very selfish reasons. It's gone beyond survival for them. And it's now come into a place where it's like when the zombies are very weak, they're trying to get them to perform for the camera and they're not working. And then they just finally die. And they're like, never work with a zombie. You know, it's like, they'll always let you down.
What is it? Like animals and kids and zombies. It's like
zombies
these are, like, yeah, they're just not good on camera. Great. So then do we think now after that scene, do we have a group of them going out? I don't think they all go. I think you do want to have that disagreement.
I think that's where somebody in the group then becomes the antagonist.
Right. Oh, interesting.
You know, it's like somebody in the group then, as you were saying, the dynamics in the group, then somebody then wants the zombies back, or they want something to you know, finish the film, or even just to seek that thrill again. I think that's, or you know, it could be an external thing. It could be they encounter something searching, you know, on the road, and they might encounter, like, you know, like in 28 Days Later, they encounter the soldiers. There's a conflict somewhere else with an established order, even that goes against them. And I think that's where they have to go looking. I think after they hit this low, they have to go seeking something else, seeking a new high, in something.
Yeah. And so that probably means, because I like what you mean about, like, it's in the area. They've eliminated the threat in their area. So we have them leave their safe zone to look for an unsafe zone. And maybe they come across other people, or I'm not sure what this next phase is. Do you have an idea in mind of what they're going to encounter? Because they're going to leave. Let's say they all leave together, but some people aren't thrilled with this. But then they don't want to, or maybe some people do stay back, and then they can actually end up helping or saving them in the end.
Yeah.
I guess, because I still feel like not everybody's going to be on board with this. And if we're going to invent an antagonist out of this scenario, it could split the group, and a few of them go off. A few of them are like, we're running out of resources.
Yeah.
So we are safe, but for how long? Winter's coming, and we have like nothing prepared, because we didn't spend this time setting ourselves up for like hibernating over winter, and like preparing and harvesting and gathering food and hunting and fishing. We spent this time putting the best footage of a Jackass film together, which is also quite delicious. Whereas like your energy went just down the drain. So maybe it is. What do you think? Is it they all go together, or some people go and some people stay?
I think they could go as a group, and I think, like, even if it's as simple as like this, even if they do encounter, they do find humanity rebuilding itself. And if it's not a viral plague, if it is just, you know, you need dead people that come back to life, well then there's a temptation of, like, if somebody does want zombies to come back, they encounter a town or a society rebuilding itself, and somebody decides, well, somebody has to die here for more zombies to happen, so we can finish our film, maybe something like that.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So are we saying that they leave and they find a new, they're going to have to encounter zombies, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. The zombies have to come back, I think. Yeah.
But are they going to find a new safe zone and then try to make that unsafe? Because that seems drastic. Yeah. That seems like these people have like fortified their own security, and Jackass show up, and one of them's like, yeah, but what if I just open the gate? You know, it's like, you know, and that's your antagonist. So some of them went with the goal of new resources and setting up a new world, because they can't do that together. Like there's certain skills that they just do not have in this collection. So they find like kind of like a paradise in chaos, right? They find this safe haven, and one of them is like, this would be great footage. Like, what if there's something there, isn't there? There is something in that scenario.
So. Yeah, I can that plays it. I can see it in my head. You know, I think there's something interesting about that.
Yeah. I like, when I dropped out of Walking Dead, it was basically this kind of neighborhood community that was put together in a, like, they left a prison, and I think maybe they were, just from my recollection of that show, I think the prison episodes went on too long, because I kind of was like, okay, I've had enough of like the prison. But I think they ended up in this kind of neighborhood where they met new people, a little bit of mystery, and sometimes they'd have to leave the high walled gated community, and that's kind of where it was. I'm kind of picturing the Jackass crew showing up to something like that. Or do you do you have another idea for like
something like that
location?
Something like that, because you can, as you said, there was missed opportunities when they did it on that, I think, because it was very there was repetition in it. It was always, they left one area that was exactly like the next, and
Yeah.
there was never a sense of fun about it. Like, you know, I think Zombieland had like fun with like what you would do in the zombie apocalypse, and you know, I can't imagine like that people would just go around dressed in normal clothes. Like, you know, you would be going around in the car you wanted to drive. You would be dressing whoever the hell you wanted to. You wouldn't just live in these kind of these towns where nothing really happened. There was no, they didn't put on any music or anything. There was no sense of living in them. So I think that they could go somewhere that had something, a community where there's a bit of life, there's something good happening, or there's people trying to build something. Uh,
Oh wow, I just had an idea. If they go to one of these environments, and maybe we make this environment quite spectacular, like these people have got it together. Like,
yeah,
so there's like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, they've actually showed up to like the best case scenario. I
yeah,
just thought like one of them would probably want to be like, hey, do you guys want to see the film? And they show an edit of the film with the zombies because it's like, well, now you have an audience for the first time.
yeah, yeah. The audience is a big
So
thing. Yeah,
yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh, like you show up and I can imagine a funny scenario of them arriving and getting shot at because they're in such haggard looking way that they look like zombies and they have to convince people to like, I can just see Chris Pontius like waving a flag going like, no, we're not zombies, you know, like, so they struggle to even get in, and then they look outrageous, and there's questions in this idyllic like kind of sensitive community that is
mm,
built on collaboration, that these chaos agents have shown up there and they're like, we have to pretend to be normal, like we have to, and some
yeah,
of them aren't
yeah.
at
That's very
all
good.
involved in that. So it's like, let's show them the film. It's like, you kidding me? You can't show them this film, like, and then they show, like, then they end up doing it, and you have this moment where there's like, I don't know, you have like zombies outside a wall, and then inside the wall, they have a big screen premiere of zombie Jackass for the audience who are horrified about like, this is the fruit of your labor. Like we
Yeah,
have been we have been gathering rainwater for the past 9 months, and like every single way we've developed systems of like revitalizing the community in sustainable ways. And he's like, yeah, remember the time I farted on a zombie? And it's like, you see the shot, and it's like, what? And it's this dormant zombie who gets farted on, you know? Like, you're just, again, for some reason, I keep enjoying the idea that there's such a dichotomy between environments, between the characters and the scenario, the zombies, now this community and the Jackass crew. But I do think somebody's going to open up that gate
I
for
think so. Yeah,
footage, for
yeah, yeah,
footage sake. And I
yeah,
think that's where we're barreling to the third act at that
yeah,
point, where
yeah.
it's like that is your third act, where they basically, I don't even know, but like I just think that action is so severe, and probably what builds to it comes through with a lot of the group kind of retiring. Like they're going, okay, that was it. That was our swan song. We
Mm,
showed the film and that's it. And maybe some of them stop performing and start helping members of the new community. Like they just go into like the productive tasks that some
yeah,
might think are a bit boring and kind of like, well, why are you doing that? Like I was going to go out and like rile up some zombies, and it's like, look, we got a good thing here. We got away with it. We got away. Like
yeah,
we have lived an extreme life, and I think it's time to put the camera down. And not everybody thinks that way. And I think
yeah,
that's actually where
yeah,
we're kind of launching into the third act, right?
yeah, yeah. You don't need a camera to live life to the fullest.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Who do you think in our scenario should be that antagonist?
I think the obvious one, because there is tension, he wasn't in the last film, would be a Bam. You know,
Right.
he's had a lot of problems. But it could be a fictional. It could be one of the new crew that want to live life to the extreme, because they did introduce new guys because the other guys are getting older. And what if
Right.
the older guys don't. There is somebody new and extreme that really wants to push it. It could be that, or it could be somebody in the old crew. Maybe we go down the Scrappy Doo and the Scooby Doo, and it is Danger Aaron who finally wants to have his moment. Maybe he's the big bad because he's been holding all this resentment because he did get bullied the most. Maybe he's the one that wants his time to shine.
That's interesting. I do think in this scenario, because again, this is the end. They played like a-hole characters of themselves.
Yeah.
Like it feels like we're losing that moment if it's a new character we've introduced.
Sure.
I mean, I think Danger Aaron's great. Maybe it's even Johnny Knoxville who actually
could be Johnny himself.
Can't let this go. And maybe it starts with him going, "This is the
strong,
last one we ever
choice.
do. It's the last one we ever do." And the audience may not expect him to become the villain.
Yeah.
But then he's the one that got all the fame, all the notoriety. This is what he's known for. And now he is having tough difficulty giving it up. Whereas everyone else found different lives. And he's the one who brought them all together for that reunion, right?
Yeah.
So he can be a bit of a
it could be a moment of it could be a moment of it started and ends with me. That kind of thing. Because it could be that, because he did say, like, it is true to life that he always feels he will go back, but he doesn't feel that he should. But he does want it to live on, and you do get a sense from him that he does want it to live on, and he always gets drawn back somehow. So maybe it is kind of an addiction.
And you know what? The feeling of opening the gate can be very similar to releasing the bull, right?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
He's the one who
would,
because I've seen interviews with him about like he can never do it again, but he had actually had an addiction to it. Like he actually talked about it in those terms of like he just couldn't stop. Like that, like the bull scenarios, like he can't do it, but for some reason he actually got like really into it. So he kind of bringing that into it, where it's like the dangers.
That's a lovely visual that you painted there. Yeah, the opening the gate, the bull.
The dangers behind the gate, and I'm addicted to the danger.
That's fantastic.
And then he's going to be the one who opens the gate. Oh man, and he'd be a surprise for this, and he's also like most notable character, and he can act. So I think that would be really cool if it was Knoxville turned out surprisingly to be the villain.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really, really good. I love that.
So now we're in the third act where the zombies have like, and it's actually pretty tragic and I think we should see it from like Jackass Troop's eyes of like, look what we've done. Like we showed up to like an idyllic society and we just wrecked it.
Ruined it.
So now they have to probably solve it, right? So everybody hides and like they have to clear all the zombies. And look, I guess what we're saying is they've done it before since they ran out of zombies in the midpoint. So it is our third act basically like they actually step up, be heroes, maybe defeat in any way we're talking about, defeat Johnny Knoxville or show him the error of his ways. I have no idea what to do here, but I think it needs to be like if we're saying like they showed up to a great place and wrecked it, I feel like they probably need to be the ones to stand up and fix it, right?
I think so. And I think because those guys are actually, they are creative. Clearly they are creative because of everything that they do. So you could almost have like, almost like a play on the idea of, the Magnificent Seven. They have to, they get the community to work with them to beat the zombies. You could play on that trope a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
And they kind of teach everybody to be a little bit more Jackass, but then they learn from the community as well.
That's interesting. I really like that idea of teaching them to be a bit more Jackass. So there needs to be a scenario, a high stakes scenario where maybe there's members of that new community have to take like a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Basically, like they have to pass through a very dangerous area, and Jackass crew is actually going to help them and teach them like having a little bit of fearlessness.
Yeah, you need a bit of danger you need a bit of danger to feel alive,
Yeah. Safety first, danger, Aaron. Right.
I used to love that. I always loved that.
Oh wow, that's super interesting. So they're gonna say like, and then it can be a collision of scenarios. Like some of them are doing like some of them are saving people, while some of them are killing zombies, and some of them are
Mm,
like trying to close the gate. You know, and like it's one of those
mm.
kind of multi-scenario moments. Um, so then we have some of them
But
saving
you could
the
definitely have them rubbing poo to draw the scent away. You know, that could come back again. You know, rubbing poo on themselves. The fast people rub poo on themselves to get the zombies away from the rest of the group.
That's great. Some of them will like have to like draw the zombies away by being
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
decoys. So like they put together like they if we did this in a few different drafts, we'd probably find a way to take the early moments of their real scenarios, or I keep using the
Hmm.
word scenario. We take the early moments of their segments and then repurpose them to save everyone in the end. So it's like
Okay.
your skill that you did in that one segment is now being
Yeah,
used
yeah,
strategically to save this life, to defeat this zombie, and we kind of like wrap everything together, and like
yeah, yeah,
everything pays off from all the segments we've watched. All the lessons they've learned, but they didn't realize they were learning, have now
yeah,
been
yeah,
put
yeah.
to save society as a whole for what they know. Um, and I'm not sure what we do with Johnny Knoxville. I'm not sure he needs to be eaten or really punished, or does he learn the error of his ways? Like, where are we landing with him? Like the antagonist of the Jackass guys. He opened the gate. What's his fate?
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting because I wasn't expecting Johnny to be the villain of this piece, so I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, I mean, you always in a zombie film you want to see the bad guy get eaten, eaten
Right.
horrifically. You do, but he's such a likable, charismatic person as well. You could want him to see the error of his ways and overcome it. It's like,
Maybe it's not. He doesn't. I don't see him getting eaten either. But maybe he just leaves
mm,
because he's like I don't fit in here. I never have. So he ends up just going out of the gate, and then that's it. Like he says goodbye, and like he's gonna live a life out there.
yeah.
Um, and
Oh
so
yeah,
he
that's interesting.
learns.
Keep it ambiguous, you
Yeah, he
know, and
learns. He
yeah,
doesn't get eaten, but he just realizes that he's not built for that life,
yeah.
and he's
That's really
only
good.
gonna
Yeah, yeah,
he's only gonna open that gate. He's like, I am a gate opener. He's like, I
yeah,
will
yeah,
I will always open that gate. So I might as
yeah,
well open it and walk out it. You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So it's like one
I
final
think
time.
that fits exactly what you were talking about all along. That's very consistent. Like, and that's a great ending for him.
Yeah. So I think at that point they would have saved the community. They would have defeated the zombies
He
and
becomes the bull.
closed the gate. He becomes the
The
bull. Oh
bull.
my gosh. Yeah.
You know,
And Dave England is like rubbing the bull poo all over him. That would be really funny too if he did finally put the poo on himself, and they were like, "Oh, we don't need it," and it's like, "What?" And he's just covered in it. And it
it
was
never
like,
worked.
yeah. So it's actually like he finally like the whole thing is him refusing until he finally does, and then he finally comes out at the end going, "I'm ready," and it's like, "I was done. We're finished." And it's like, "Oh no, come on." But yeah, so in the end, they would have closed the gate, saved the townspeople, and
Mm,
defeated all the zombies inside. And then when they've done that, they are heroes for a scenario they've kind of set off themselves. And then they look at the culprit, um, Johnny Knoxville, and he ends up just going like, "This is not for me." Like, and he says his goodbyes, and you actually have a little bit of a moment. Like, there's an end to like a
mm,
finality to it. Like the guy who started it all, the figurehead and the leader of the team is the one who ends up leaving because he's holding them all back.
yeah.
You know,
Oh
it's like
yeah. Yeah.
I'll go. I'll see myself out. And I love the idea that he became the bull. Like that's probably a line in it where he's like I fought the bull until I became one. But either way, yeah, there's so much you could actually
Mm,
play with if you kind of like laid it out and wrote it. But I think that's the end then. He
Yeah,
walks
sure.
out into the zombie apocalypse, and the rest of them stay and contribute to society and retire from that lifestyle that they lived for so long. And maybe throughout it, there's people who forgave each other, and there's conflicts that are buried and put to rest because of the greater good. But like that feels like the end of Jackass Apocalypse.
Oh yeah, yeah, I like it. I like it.
So is that it? Do we have anything else to cover, or did we just kind of find the resolution there?
Yeah, that kind of went a direction I didn't expect. So yeah, I think that's quite interesting. I'm gonna be thinking about that now and kind of going, I wish I had said that in a couple of days, or I wish I had, but that's the nature of doing this though, isn't it, really?
That's it. Like I tell people, like if I sometimes I ask in advance, does anybody have a nugget of an idea, or are we just literally making it up from scratch? But like you can't come in with too preconceived of a notion, because the collaborative improvisation of this it'll not go the way you want.
Yeah.
Just we could, but I don't know. It never like sometimes I'm like, hey, I've got an idea of how to take this, and it just goes a completely different way. And I
Yeah.
always enjoy the energy of that. Like
Okay. Yeah.
it's the laying the tracks as the train is going, and it's like, I don't know where we're going, but we
Yeah.
made a decision early on.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works. Oh, actually, it's very rare that it doesn't. We don't find a satisfactory ending, even though
Okay.
we've literally made this up. But just actually, so we've wrapped that up. What did you have in mind? Did you have something else? Because you said it didn't go the way you thought it would. What did you think when you had this concept? I'm just out of curiosity. Did you have like a
Well,
bit more of building blocks that you expected us to go down?
yeah. Well, I suppose one scenario I had was ridiculous. Was that they would want to go to a place like NASA looking for answers or something like that, and maybe one of them just decides like, oh, all right, well, there's no more zombies left, I'm going into space or something like that. But they might actually find out more details in NASA about the outbreak, or they might encounter something there that could have been interesting as well as another community. Um,
Ah. So you're looking
but
more at like what the definition of the outbreak is, and maybe
there are some answers.
can they cure it? What are the answers?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's so funny. Zombie films never go that way, do they? Like
No.
there's never an ending. Has there ever been an ending where there's a cure, or is it always survival? Like even the new Dawn of the Dead from Zack Snyder, they end up on an island, and the island has zombies. So
Zombies, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah, it never that's why I always said, like, I mean, for me, I could never understand why, because they do show a progression of zombies decomposing, and I'm like going,
right.
wait it out, wait it out. They decompose, they can't walk anymore, you know? I've never seen that because we never go that far in the story.
Right. So maybe we'll come back another time and we'll do a zombie film where the idea is that there is going to be an end to the zombie apocalypse and somebody finds a cure. Oh, actually, World War Z, the film with Brad Pitt, they end up having they find a solution. And that was a rewrite of the third act,
Mm.
where the other one, the original version, and by the way, I have the script for the original version and I read it.
Oh,
And oh yeah, I was 100% going, oh,
oh,
Storybreakers live
really?
readings. I was like, this is an
Oh,
interesting topic. But the original, it was more of like a battle in Russia
okay.
against zombies, and it was a big third act, and then it got reduced into this very, very good. I really enjoyed the third act of the film version, where there's basically they're in the UK in a medical facility, and Brad Pitt has to like get his way. And his name Jerry, and I'm like, that's such a weird heroic name for some reason. Like Jerry
For Brad Pitt, yeah,
is your
yeah.
hero, but he has to go get this a disease from a refrigerator, and has to get through all these zombies in a hallway, which is not a bombastic wartime ending. It's a very personalized scenario. I really enjoyed that, but there is something in that ending where they go, we haven't found the cure. We found, I guess, the cure, but they found their solution, and now they're going to try to bring society back because they found what we could call as the answer to the zombie apocalypse, something like that. But I don't think of other films where the ending is we found the cure to zombies. It's normally like we just need to survive, and half the time, like most of the time, it doesn't even work out for the
Shaun of the
protagonist.
Dead. Shaun of the Dead did a great ending where it was like they started to incorporate the zombies into society. That
Oh, that's
was quite
great.
funny. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was brilliant. That was brilliant. And
yeah,
also there was, you know, the fact that he keeps Nick Frost just at his base level. He's just sitting playing video games with him all day
incredible.
long. That was fantastic. So
Yeah,
that was the only one I can think of really where they did kind of show you post apocalypse where society gets back to normal slightly.
yeah. So then, did you have anything else besides the NASA kind of like they're gonna like look for an answer to this?
No,
Or
I
was that
was, I
kind
was, I was, I was excited by where you might take this, so I was kind of,
of
yeah.
wonderful? All right, so I think that's a wrap on that. Or are we calling it Jackass, the zombie apocalypse, or
Oh,
are we trying to
yeah,
be
well, Jackass of the Dead. I don't know.
D-Day?
Yeah, I'm sure you could come up with some great titles for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. All right, David, thank you so much for sh- finally showing up for one of
Thank
our
you so much for
episodes.
having me.
This has been amazing, and it's been a long time coming. So,
Um,
yeah, thank you so much. This has been really cool.
it's been fantastic, and I can't wait to see it in person. So give me a shout when you're in Dublin, and we can go for a drink properly.
Absolutely. All right. And so for the listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And other than that, yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you, Dave, for coming on and creating one of the most ridiculous scenarios I think we've ever had on Storybreakers. And yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time for another episode of Storybreakers on Writing Shops. My name is Chris Brennan. Have a great night. Take care, guys.